There was a time in human history when survival wasn't a concept or a theory. It was the only thing that mattered. Before tools, before fire, before strategy shaped our evolution, early humans lived in a world where every sound could mean danger, every shadow could hold a predator, and every day was a fight to stay alive long enough to see the next. This wasn't a world of comfort or control, it was a world where humans were not the hunters, we were the hunted. To understand what that life was really like, you have to strip away everything familiar. No houses, no fences, no light pollution, just open landscapes, dense forests, unpredictable weather, and animals that were stronger, faster, and even better adapted for killing than we were. Even the bravest human today, with modern weapons at their disposal, would struggle to last a single night in that environment that our ancestors called home. There was no heating to shield you from freezing nights, no clean water on demand, no fridge to keep food safe. If you were cold, you suffered. If you were hungry, you searched. If you were thirsty, you walked. There was no electricity, no alarms, no neighbours to call for help, no locked doors to hide behind, no Wi-Fi signal, no backup plan. When darkness fell, it fell completely. You heard every sound. You felt every shift in the wind. You knew that anything moving in the shadows could end your life before you even had time to scream. There were no hospitals if you suffered an injury, no antibiotics if you got sick, a cut from a sharp rock, an infection from dirty water, a broken bone. Any of these could be a death sentence. Let's start with the predator that left some of the clearest evidence behind, the leopard. Leopards were not just good hunters, they were perfect at it, silent, patient, and deadly. When scientists found the small skull of a young hominin in South Africa, the evidence was unmistakable. 2 clean puncture marks in the back of the head. The spacing, the angle, the depth, all of it matched the lower canine teeth of a leopard. This wasn't an accident, it was scavenging. A leopard killed this child, lifted the body into a tree and fed on it. And this wasn't even a one-time event. Leopards hunted early humans repeatedly. They learned after our patterns before we learned theirs. If a human walked alone, especially at dawn or dusk, it was already too late. Water didn't offer safety either. In prehistoric Africa, lakes and rivers were dangerous because crocodiles controlled them. And not modern crocodiles. Ancient giants like Crocodylus anthropophagus, a species so frequently involved in killing early humans that scientists literally named it the man-eating crocodile. One fossilized foot found in Tanzania still carries unmistakable bite marks, deep punctures where teeth sank in, pieces torn away, crushing damage that matches exactly what large crocodiles do today. These animals waited underwater, motionless, hidden until the moment a human leant in to drink. Then they launched upward with explosive force. It didn't matter how alert you were. If a crocodile got hold of you, the fight was already over. Caves weren't much safer either. Early humans used them for shelter, warmth, protection against the weather, covered from open predators. But caves were prime real estate for hyenas too. And hyenas were a different kind of threat. They didn't rely on stealth like leopards or surprise like crocodiles. They relied on numbers and raw power. Hyenas today have one of the strongest bite forces of any mammal, capable of crushing bone with ease. Their ancient relatives were no different. In several caves across Europe and Africa, researchers found piles of bones that tell the same story. Cracked skulls, shattered limbs, vertebrae with tooth marks. Many of those bones belonged to Neanderthals and early humans. The pattern was consistent. Hyenas have been dragging bodies into their dens and consuming them completely, down to the marrow. Nighttime was the most dangerous. Fire was the only thing that kept predators at a distance, and even then it didn't always work. Imagine a small group of early humans sitting around a fire, exhausted, hungry, hoping that the flames would last until sunrise. Just beyond the light, a ring of glowing eyes, hyenas circling, calling to each other, coordinating. If the fire dimmed, if someone wandered too far, if someone's guard slipped, the consequences were immediate. But Africa wasn't the only deadly landscape. When humans and Neanderthals moved into Ice Age Europe, they encountered a different predator, the cave lion. Larger than modern lions, faster and built for taking down heavy prey, these animals ruled the continent. Cave art from the early humans showed exactly how they were perceived, not as distant animals, but as constant threats. In one cave in Germany, a cave lion skeleton was found with a healed puncture wound from a spear. That means a human confronted this animal, injured it, and survived. But the lion survived too. Encounters like that shaped behaviour. They shaped fear. They shaped strategy. And it wasn't only predators on the ground. One of the most surprising pieces of evidence comes from above. The Tonchild, a 2.3 million year old hominin, shows marks identical to those made by modern crowned eagles when they kill monkeys. Talon punctures through the eye sockets, crushing damage on the skull. Early humans learned the hard way that danger could come from the trees, from the grass, from the water, and even the sky. These predators didn't just threaten us physically, they shaped our evolution. Being hunted forced early humans to adapt in ways that couldn't just change their behaviour, it changed their bodies and minds. Walking upright made us easier to spot on the horizon, but it also gave us better view of approaching danger. Living in groups improved our chances of survival. Fire became essential, not just for cooking, but as our defensive tool. Our ability to coordinate, communicate, share information, and plan ahead wasn't born from convenience. It was born from necessity. Fear wasn't a weakness. Fear was a strategy, a tool, a survival mechanism passed down generation after generation. The human brain developed to store memories of danger, to recognize patterns, to react quickly to threats. Anxiety, caution, awareness, these traits kept our ancestors alive. At some point, everything began to change. The tools became sharper, the cooperation became stronger. Humans figured out how to fight back, first against smaller predators, then against medium-sized ones, eventually against the largest ones of all. Bones of lions show cut marks from human tools. Hyena dens were raided. Crocodiles were hunted. Predators that once terrified us slowly became prey themselves. The balance of power shifted. Not all at once, not in a single moment, but over thousands of years of trial, error, loss, and learning. What survived wasn't just the evidence in bones. What survived is in us, in our instincts, our behaviours, our reflexes, the way we look over our shoulder when walking alone at night, the way darkness makes you feel uneasy, the way our hearts react to sudden sounds. These are not irrational fears, they're reminders. Reminders that for a very long time, humans were not the rulers of anything. Reminders that survival was earned the hard way. Reminders that the world we live in now, with walls, locks, and lights, is new. Our ancestors walked through a world filled with predators that studied them, hunted them, and shaped them. And despite everything, they survived. Not because they were the strongest, the fastest, or the most naturally equipped, but because they learned, they adapted, they endured. We are here today because they made it through a world designed to erase them. Not as hunters, but as prey who refused to stay prey. Life in the prehistoric world didn't allow for rest, comfort, or certainty. Humans couldn't simply try again tomorrow. If a mistake happened, if a moment of distraction occurred, the consequences were instant and irreversible. Every additional day survived was the result of vigilance, awareness, and instincts honed across countless generations. And because the world was never quiet, never predictable, survival demanded constant observation. The wind might shift, carrying the scent of a predator. Birds might go silent, signaling danger. Branches might move in ways that didn't match the breeze. These are warnings our ancestors learned to recognize because failing to understand them meant joining bones scattered across ancient graves. Predators weren't mythical beings. They were tangible, present, and skilled. When early humans walked from one camp to another, they often traveled in tight clusters. They kept children toward the center of the group, not by accident, but because they had learned from the experience. Children were the easiest targets, small, curious, vulnerable, slow. Predators understand this too. A child wandering even a few steps ahead of the group could become prey before anyone had time to react. Evidence from fossil sites shows that hominids frequently fell victim to surprise attacks. Bones reveal crushed skulls, missing limbs, and bite patterns that match the jaws of powerful carnivores. These aren't interpretations, they are clear signs of violent encounters. A broken femur here, punctured ribs there, claw marks across the pelvis. The historic world didn't leave much mystery behind. It documented its brutality in the simplest language possible: bone damage. At night, fear shaped everything. Our ancestors selected sleeping spots based on elevation, visibility, and access to escape routes. They avoided thick vegetation after dark. They rarely slept deeply, not because of comfort, but because instincts kept them alert. Even while resting, they positioned themselves close enough to hear one another breathe. Some watched while others slept, rotating roles to ensure predators never found them defenseless. This constant threat forged the human ability to anticipate danger. When a predator approached a camp, humans didn't react randomly. They responded strategically. They grouped together, raised torches, shouted, and used whatever tools they had to appear larger and more threatening. These responses weren't taught in a classroom or developed through trial alone. They were inherited behaviours that increased a group's odds of survival. But even when all of their caution, humans were still outmatched. A single miscalculation could devastate a community. A sudden ambush could take the strongest hunter or the most experienced gatherer. The loss didn't just mean emotional pain. It meant losing a key member of a fragile group whose survival depended upon cooperation. The cooperation wasn't optional. It was the foundation of early human life. No one group survived alone. Groups shared food, guarded each other's children, and worked together to build primitive defences. They moved strategically, taking advantage of terrain to reduce risk. They created signals for danger using sounds or gestures to warn others. They learned to read movements of predators and adapt quickly. This is where intelligence became our greatest weapon. We couldn't outrun predators like leopards. We couldn't overpower hyenas. We couldn't match the stealth of crocodiles. But we could think. We could observe patterns, identify weaknesses, and change our behaviour. This simple advantage grew stronger with every generation. When fire entered the picture, everything shifted. Fire was not just warmth, it was a tool of domination. Predators respected fire. They approached it but rarely crossed its boundaries. Early humans quickly realised this and began to maintain fire deliberately. They kept embers alive throughout the night. They protected fire in storms. They transported it from place to place, refusing to let it die. Over time, these small changes added up. The predators that once stalked humans began encountering groups that were harder to attack. Firelight revealed their ambushes. Spears extended human reach. Stones thrown with accuracy could injure even the boldest hunter. Group coordination reduced the success of surprise attacks. Humans were still vulnerable, but they were learning at a pace that no other species could match. Archaeological evidence shows that by the time humans mastered fire and sharpened tools, predator attacks decreased. Humans began to take control of their environment. They built simple shelters, elevated sleeping platforms, and more effective lookout positions. They understood which areas were unsafe and avoided them. Rivers were approached carefully. Grasslands were crossed in groups. Caves were inspected before entering. Eventually, humans weren't just defending themselves, they were pushing back. In several sites, lion bones carry clear cut marks from early tools, signs that humans hunted lions or scavenged their kills. Hyena dens contain human-made weapons, evidence of conflict. Some crocodile remains show similar marks, meaning humans likely confronted and killed them under the right conditions. These weren't attacks of dominance for pride. They were steps in the long, gradual climb from prey to predator. And even though humans were gaining confidence, the threat was still real. Predators didn't suddenly stop hunting us. They didn't disappear because humans invented new tools. They continued to watch, wait, and attack when the opportunity was right. The struggle lasted tens of thousands of years. It wasn't a short chapter. It was most of our history. Those who survived passed down more than genes. They passed down instincts that live in us today. The discomfort we feel when walking alone at night, the way we check behind us in unfamiliar places, the alertness that wakes us up when we hear a noise that breaks the silence. These reactions are not weaknesses, they're reminders. Reminders that for most of our existence, we lived in a world where we were never safe. Reminders that our ancestors survived because they listened to fear rather than ignore it. Reminders that everything we have now, our homes, our lights, our sense of security, was built on the victories of people who had none of these things. When you consider that history, the human story becomes clearer. We didn't rise to the top because we were the strongest. We rose because we adapted relentlessly, because we learned faster than any other predator could, because we worked together, because when the world pushed us to extinction, we pushed back. This is the legacy written in our bones, our behaviours and our instincts, a legacy of survival against impossible odds, a legacy that began when we were prey and transformed us into something far more powerful. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you like, comment and subscribe.